angependa kupeleka katika majengo ya Teleposta, hasa katika afisi ya msemaji wa serikali kanali mstaafu Cyrus Oguna, ambapo leo hii kuna mazungumzo yanayoendelea na ile kamati ya mtaala mpya wa CBC. Hivyo basi hebu tusikize.
Established junior secondary schools, they need to register their schools through the registration guidelines for basic education, which are in the MOE website. So they can see all the requirements that they need in order to establish that. But the age of the learner should not be fearful for anybody, because these are teenagers. They are closer to their fellow teenagers in secondary school than they are to a 6-year-old child who has just grown up from childhood. So thank you.
And maybe just to add is that in the years we also had Form 1 to Form 6 being in the same class, which was also a big gap. Maybe we can borrow leave on how did they used to integrate the Form 1s with the Form 6 in the same compound.
Sure. Mark?
Alright, so there was a proposal to include things like chess. And I think it's going back. Sorry about that. There was a proposal to include chess as a game in the CBC program, but the government...
The Bluetooth device is ready to pair. The Bluetooth device is connected successfully.
Apologies. So there was a proposal to include the game of chess in the CBC program, but the government and the Ministry of Education declined. So there are many questions like this, and they're talking about, we've talked about STEM, they're talking about the different things, the competencies in sports, the competencies in other non-technical things, so painting, music and things like that. How will those, how are they being integrated in the CBC, especially at that critical age of as you get into high school?
I want to say that this issue was brought to Parliament. We were called in the Committee of Education, and this is what happened, and I want to make it very clear, this is an issue under consultation. And the new curriculum in the senior school has physical education. And one of the things that is very clear in the physical education is introduction of all indoor games. And I bet that the person and every public get to the curriculum and check the indoor games that are included in the curriculum that learners will be having a choice of at senior school. And the chess is one of it, because it is an indoor game. And we have an indoor game in the physical education which is entrenched in the physical education. And actually in the performing arts and even in the visual arts, games have been given a priority because they develop the mind, they help the learner to be creative, and they are able to mold the learner in each of the aspects. And we did agree, the members of the chess that addressed the issue, they get in touch with the KICD, which is in charge of curriculum, so that they can be able to check the areas that they feel are missing within the current designs that are available for indoor games. That is the stand as we talk today. And Teacher Service Commission is saying all the indoor games are going to be implemented within the framework provided by the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development. So chess is not a game in the vacuum. It exists within the indoor games. And we did agree, even the members of the Chess Foundation need to be very clear that we did agree with them during the meeting with the parliamentarians that they will consult with the KICD and how this game is going to be addressed and improved against the designs that are developed within the indoor games issues. That is the stand even to date.
Maybe to add on to that, the MOE has come up with a physical education and sports policy 2020 that provides for sports and games to be implemented in schools, and one of them is chess. I also know that the curriculum framework, the basic education curriculum framework, provides for opportunities to introduce any program that shall support CBC within the non-formal learning activities in school. Chess is one of them that can be implemented because it is actually supporting the formal curriculum, and it's actually provided for in the national sports education sports policy that is in place in schools today 2020 and is available in the MOE website.
Thank you for that. The last question that we would like to ask, is there a plan to ensure there's equality and equity in our schools? Now, previously we had national schools which had a bit more facilities, a bit more better learning, if I'm allowed to use that term, than provincial schools and other schools. So the question is there a move to ensure there's equity in education so that the child going to a school in the village will have equal chances to someone who's going to school in the city of Nairobi?
Yeah, there are plans, and as I said earlier, especially with the junior secondary, is that the intention is not to have categorization of schools. It is to have schools with facilities that give opportunities and equal opportunities to all Kenyan children. Now, in place is a master plan on what kind of infrastructure that is supposed to be put in place gradually. So we have started with the classrooms in the junior secondary, and this is basically where the kind of curriculum to be offered is general in nature before we move into the specialization. So there is a plan that is in place, and all those requirements have been put into consideration. So that categorization of schools is not going to be there. And if you remember during the release of the Kenya Secondary School Education, Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education results by the Cabinet Secretary recently, is that the thrust now is towards giving resources to what we call the sub-county schools that may not be as resourced as what we refer to as the extra county, the county, and the national schools. So that is the focus. And because these are the majority of the schools, they are about 75% of the institutions that we have. And we need to develop them so that every kid in this country is given similar opportunities. So there is a plan in place.
I just want to mention also, apart from the issue of the infrastructure, if you look at the question of the human resource, the government has come out very categorical that we have started the issue of even employing intern teachers to make sure we are able to provide teachers even in those sub-county schools, so that we make sure that even the way the big schools are mentioned have teachers, even those others have. And we have introduced other methods of curriculum implementation. For example, 2 months ago or a month ago, you realized we rolled out what we call live streaming of classes, where we have a school in the remote area, in the marginalized area, and discussing with a school which is meant to be either a national school or a high school, which has facilities. And they can be able to share the teachers that are there in the school in the marginalized area and in the remote area can be able to share with the teacher who is in Alliance or in the Machakos Boys, so that they can be able to utilize that resource together and be able to see some of the materials that are available to make sure that this learner can understand what equipments are required and how do they share the teacher. These are methods that we are trying to bring on board so that the teacher is able to really also become useful in encouraging the learning even in those schools. So the government, apart from working on the infrastructure, we are working also on the human resource to see that each of the sites are in encouraging the learning even in those schools. So the government, apart from working on the infrastructure, we are working also on the human resource to see that each of the sites are mentioned. And you remember in the budget, every year we are allocated to employ 5,000 teachers. Now those 5,000 teachers are basically to assist in the 100% transition. And that is what the government will continue to do in order to meet the shortage that is there, in order for us to have quality learning even in those institutions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.